Hey, good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Orange Board of Finance. Today is Monday, February 26th. We call the meeting to order at 7:04 PM. I'd like to start by having everyone introduce themselves, beginning on my right.
Anna Mann?
Kevin McNabola.
John Cifarelli, Finance Director.
Michelle Loso, Sewer Monday?
Angie Switek, Sewer Monday.
I think Joe's over at the Amity Finance
Right.
Committee meeting.
He'll be late.
And Jim Leahy.
Ajit Jain.
Kevin Houlihan, thank you. Okay, item number 3, public dialogue. Since there's no one here from the public, we will move on to item number 4, our annual audit review with Michelle and Andrew, here to present it from Sewer to Monday. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, another audit season done. We'll start the new one in April 16th.
Another year in the books.
Another year in the books. I just want to commend the town and the Board of Ed personnel for their continued hard work and continued support throughout the audit process. It is somewhat disrupting, but we get through it together. So kudos to both finance departments, greatly appreciated. One new item this year, it's a small one. It's a new GASB Statement 96 on subscription-based information technology arrangements. So you'll see a new right-of-use asset and a corresponding liability, and pages worth of footnote disclosures related to that. Here it's very minimal. A lot of your IT contracts are one-year subscription renewal agreements, so there's no long-term commitment on most of them. Again, an unmodified clean opinion on the governmental activities, business-type activities, and each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information in the audit. No material noncompliance with laws or regulations were reported, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over financial reporting. There is only one repeat management letter comment from the prior years. So maybe we'll get rid of that one by the time John and I retire. We did do a federal and state single audit this year. That is the separate report that you see. The federal single audit, an unmodified clean opinion on compliance over the major programs with no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over compliance. Orange had about 2.1 million in federal assistance this year, both at the Board of Ed and town side, mostly on the coronavirus, state and local fiscal recovery funds, and also Board of Ed, the ESSER, Educational Stabilization Fund expenditures. Obviously, both of those programs are slowly winding down, so we'll see what transpires over the next year or two. They are talking about raising the threshold to $1 million in expenditures. I mean, obviously, you'd still be over that now, but depending on where the funding comes from or if it continues, we might fall out of that compliance requirement. State single audit, and again, an unmodified clean opinion over compliance. You receive about 3.9 million in state assistance. Congregate subsidy for Silverbrook Estates, Town Aid Road, some steep money and some community construction and development grants, some of the major programs that you had in the current year. I'm going to move it over to Andrew to take us through some of the highlights of the financial statements. And please feel free to stop us with questions along the way.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. So as Michelle was just mentioning, we have some brief comments, but wanted to first point to a deeper delve into the financial statements is on page 4 to 12, which is called the Management Discussion Analysis. This is prepared by John Cifarelli, and it's reviewed by us for its accuracy and appropriateness to the financial statements, and it kind of gives you some more in-depth take through all the different financial statements that I'm not going to go through as much tonight, but it's a good read to understand some highlights and things that occurred in town during fiscal year '23. So I was going to start at the first set of financial statements on page 13.
Before you get into there,
Sure.
because you mentioned page 4, one of the things that I always have trouble with is this concept of a fund balance. There seems to be different flavors. There almost seems to be different calculations. So that I know can't be true, so I must be not. So as we see it on various pages, I'd like to be as conversant as I can get so that I can speak more intelligently about that. All right, so I see the one here on page 4, fourth bullet on the financial highlights. All right, that says the words 24.1%. Okay, so I don't want to work it now, but I want to let you know that that's one thing that's in this document. And so what I would like to get at least 80% better at is, as we see different of these ratios throughout this document, you can educate me at least, and perhaps us and anybody watching at home, so we don't fall into the trap of not saying it properly. Okay?
You got it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
So fund balance, yes, will be something we'll be talking about in various forms, like you just mentioned. The first being on page 13.
Okay?
So this is where we start most years, or pretty much every year, that we've discussed. This is the government-wide statements. These set of statements take into account items such as fixed capital assets, different forms of debt and long-term, short-term liabilities, items related to pension and OPEB, the other post-employment benefit plan. So this is more of a
Few more pages.
encompassing, yes,
This one,
right there, yes.
Okay, thank
More
you.
of an encompassing statements take into account a lot of things that you don't see necessarily on the fund statements in the general fund. Some highlights on this page, which you were just alluding to. On the bottom, total net position ended at approximately 24.7 million, an increase of 5.9 million from fiscal year '22. Fiscal year '22 had almost an identical change as well.
Where's that 5.9 million?
That is then on the next page.
Oh, okay, I'm
On
on this
page 14, yes.
Okay, is this where it goes sideways on us? right?
Correct, yes. So on the bottom right of page 14, you'll see change in net position, which will be just shy of 5.9 million there on the bottom right. For 5,869,175.
Okay,
So this, again, is taking into account items that not necessarily shown in the general fund. Capital asset additions here were about 2.9 million. There was purchase of some property for 251,000, road improvements of 2.1 million. So that accounted for a majority of the capital asset additions.
when I look at page 14, does this have that in it, the 27 funds at the back of the bus here?
So,
That's
That'll be
on
coming
page
up,
14?
Yeah, but it's included in here,
so the
right?
first 2 pages encompass all funds.
First 2 pages being page what? and
13 and 14.
Okay, thank you.
So I would call those your full accrual, overall town activities.
Okay,
Encompasses all the funds other than the pension trust funds.
okay. So it includes more than our just revenue and expense that we deal with and
It
a lot in
includes,
this.
it includes the general fund, the ARPA fund, the
Oh.
capital non-recurring fund.
And
the-
those 27 funds.
The Board of Ed funds, correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
So this 5.9 million increase can be attributed to items such as the strong property tax collections, increase in new grant assistance, significant interest and income in different investments, and also there was accounting for the pension and OPEB related expenses.
Now, when you're talking on page 14, are you talking on specific items that you're mentioning right this moment on page 14? Or
I'm
are you
just talking
thinking-
about, because that number is 5.9 million increase, I'm giving you you can't really see it in the numbers.
I
It's-
believe it.
Right, it's more of an analysis that we do over the course of the audit is what changed.
Okay.
And that gives you the highlights of what has occurred, and that'll be more,
More
I
obvious in
guess,
another chart.
more obvious in the budget schedules, you
Roger.
see that.
Okay, thank you.
So after these two statements, we go dig a little bit deeper down to the fund level. And this is where you're more familiar with seeing the different funds, general,
So the page
capital.
we're on now is,
15 through 18. So
Okay.
starting at 15, we'll start at the balance sheet.
that's a
and-
balance sheet. Folks at home, we can't get my computer to get this to be larger, and I apologize for that. Right. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure. So starting at the left-hand column is always the general fund. We list out all the other major funds that, based on calculations of items, assets, revenue, out of the total, they come out to be major. And then all of the other smaller funds are combined to that other governmental funds column on the right-hand side. So all the other smaller funds that are listed specifically in the back of the report get combined.
That's the 27.
And, the 27 others, correct, and are pulled together here on the front. We're going to focus here on the general fund and a couple other funds, significant items. So the general fund, of course, you'll see at the bottom left-hand corner, the fund balance ended at $20.5 million. That increased $2 million from fiscal year '22. And you'll
Right.
see that on page 17, you'll see the increase in fund balance.
Can you alert me to what's under the Orange Visiting Nurses Association, also on that unassigned line? Because I'm
Sure.
noticing on the right, that now becomes not 18,603,545, it becomes 16 million and change.
Yeah, it's total government funds, yeah. 16.8.
Correct, that's the deficit in the OVNA.
Right.
The general fund minus.
That we're gonna
Yeah.
probably have to cover
General
at some
fund's
point.
18.
The general fund is covering the OV&A deficit over the last 4 years.
Okay, but the unassigned, would it be 18,603? It seems to me
Yep.
that it should be
That's
16.
the general fund, no.
Well-
The 16 is the total accounting all the way across to the right.
Yeah.
I'm just talking
Correct.
specifically just general fund at this
The only
moment.
thing that can be in unassigned is general fund and anybody that has a negative.
That's it.
Oh, so that's why it's there?
Yeah.
Ah,
So if it was positive, it would be in one
It
of
would
those
be
other
one of
lines.
the-
Correct.
Think of the general fund as like, you have a mortgage, you have somebody co-signing the mortgage for you if you don't pay. Well, that's kind of how the general fund acts. If the other funds don't have the funds to pay, the general fund does.
oh, I think of it even simpler than that, John. I would just think of it as a bank account, and I have $18 in it, and now I have OV&A wants almost 2 of those 18. That's what it's telling me. But that, to me, gets to the eventual question of what's the percentage fund balance. If that's what I owe, which is not, I don't really have in my pocket the 18.6, I have really the 16.688. What's the proper, you don't have
Well,
to answer now,
no.
but that's
Oh,
the
no, I
type
can
of
answer now.
question that my
Yep.
brain gets to eventually.
Yep, oh no, it's a definite, okay, so a few scenarios cause the negatives. Potentially, you have capital projects that are going on before the bonding.
Right,
So that'll be funded by the bonds that are issued. Sometimes you have a service that you're providing, that generates a loss. Hopefully, what the plan is that future revenues are gonna turn that around. And that 1.9
yep.
becomes 1, becomes 500,000, becomes 0, and becomes positive. So it's the original, I think, intent of OV&A was it was always supposed to be, self-sufficient and run itself. Over the course of the last several years, that hasn't happened. So yes, if you close OV&A, yes, somebody's gonna have to absorb that deficit. And yes, it would be the general fund. But if you continue to run OV&A, then, hopefully future revenues will reduce that amount.
But it's certainly an exposure.
It definitely is an exposure, correct.
Could still go the other way too.
Roger that, I'm all for it.
John, is there any plan in place, a sustainability plan? I mean, this particular entity has been in a deficit now for at least 4 years. Is there any plan from the department head to?
We have a new department head that's been there about a year, and she's working on turning.
Have you met her, Kev?
I have not, no.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
I think she's been in here, I think, you must have been
I
absent that
probably
time,
wasn't here, yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Yeah, we're keen on this,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Right, so as I was mentioning, the increase in the general fund balance, we had some in-town strong tax collections, increase in mill rate, grand list values, grant funding, state and federal assistance, the increase in investment earnings, and that's netted against some increases in contractual obligations, education expenditures, and $1.5 million transfer to the capital fund to fund the various projects. Now, we just talked about, you were talking about percentages of unassigned fund balance. We focused on just the general fund for this analysis, looking at the 18.6 at the bottom of page 15. And that's approximately, like you said, about 24% of the budgeted expenditures going forward. So you're looking at a few months of coverage there in terms of percent-wise for unassigned. So it's a healthy unassigned fund balance. Another fund, we talked about OV&A just a moment ago, so I won't go into that as well, but we had the same analysis and comments as was just spoken. The ARPA fund, which is about in the middle of the page on page 15, is another fund that was created to capture the recovery funding. Approximately $2.4 million remains unexpended at the end of fiscal year '23. So this will be needed to be properly appropriated and expended before during 2026.
So
and
John,
the current
to get
years.
my mind focused right, I'm looking at where we were at the end of June of 2023, right? Which is,
That ARPA fund now has a little over $1 million.
so the numbers I'm probably having in my head are way different than what I'm seeing here.
Yes.
For capital, for ARPA, was that fair, Kev? Thank you.
Yes, this snapshot in time is a little bit in the past, but.
Yep. No, roger that, thank you for being
Yes.
patient with me.
Moving ahead a couple pages to page 19.
Okay.
So on page 19, it gives a summarized version of the budget to actual for the general fund.
This I would be thinking of more as
A few more
town
pages down,
budget,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I wish I could hit
Oh,
this
this is the
plus
one, right,
button,
yeah.
but I'm not, we know from before we went on air what happens when that happens, okay, for whatever reason.
I think there's a couple more pages to go to get to the right page.
Oh, so I was on 19, this is not 19?
The one on the screen is not, no.
Okay, so, thank you.
That one should be it there, yep.
And it's actually a little bit easier to read.
So this here
Okay.
gives the summarized versions, again, as I was saying, for the revenues and expenditures for general fund. About a third way down the page on the right, you'll see that the revenues ended favorably, 1.9 million over budget. Property tax collections, interest earnings, licenses, permits, and fees over budget due to, conveyance, property sales in towns, as well as construction activity. Interest rates continue to be high and continue to provide some added funding in terms of you're able to keep balances there in bank accounts and investments.
So, Andrew and John, this 1.1 million clearly is over 50% of the favorable thing on the total revenues, right, a positive variance. We are back,
1.9.
when we made that estimate, at a point in time where all the interest rate raise-ups had yet to happen, right? And so we were somewhat conservative probably in our estimating of interest income, and we're happily surprised to know it's $1.1 million in our favor.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
We went from probably, I think, 35 or 40,000 estimating that budget.
Yeah.
And then the rates went up and we cleared over $1 million.
John, do you offhandedly give me on the miscellaneous? I always hate to see a miscellaneous that has a large deficit, so what are we looking at
That was the
there?
Amity
That's the
surplus.
change in the Amity surplus
From what we budgeted for what we,
to the way they're
Right.
handling it now.
First they
The
refunded
changeover.
and now
it's
they
more on the expenditures side.
reduced the
Right.
required.
understood, okay, which you see down there in the expenses, but I'm getting ahead of your
Right, and
words.
I think you
Andrew.
changed that, the way you budgeted for 23, 24
Yes,
to account for it the new way.
all right, thank you, Andrew.
Right, so expenditures as well, about 2/3 down the page ended at a favorable variance as well. under budget by $1.1 million. A lot of departments had some savings, public safety, changes in personnel, open positions, benefits came under budget, payroll tax savings due to overall lower payroll, workers' comp and other pension costs were slightly under budget. Amity School District was also under budget by $356,000 due to, we just talked about that previously, change in
Where
the
they
surplus.
reduced the payment for March of
Right.
that year or something like that.
And student ratio changes help with that as well.
Okay.
Pages 20 to 22,
So the punchline on that page is that the benefit of positive revenues over budget and expenditures under budget is that we come up with the year of, I don't wanna call it net profit, but my mind thinks of it that way. Is a little under $3.1 million.
3.1 million.
And we have some other miscellaneous stuff underneath.
So it's a 3.1 surplus.
Surplus, it would be a surplus, yeah. Yeah, profit or surplus, for sure, you could use either word, yeah. Probably surplus is a better word. Is there anything meaningful in those other financial sources uses?
It's really just most of it's the transfer out to the capital fund, the 1.5 million at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then the transfers in are,
Sorry.
oops, sorry. Sorry, thank you. The transfer out is to mostly the capital fund. Transfers in include transfers from the Park and Rec Fund, Police Special Duty, and OVNA.
Could you educate me on just a 10-second example of what elapsed encumbrances is, since it comes up to $338,000?
It did. So basically, I can't remember off the top of my head what most of that was for.
I think that was old encumbrances
Yeah,
from
it was
the
some old
previous
encumbrances
stuff.
that, from maybe some capital items that came in under budget. Could have been some employee benefits as well. Was that there?
Okay.
That we had set aside or the town had set aside some funds that we no longer needed to encumber.
Jim, if you look at.
So we
our
encumbered it and then
expense
didn't actually use
report,
it.
Yeah.
right, If you look at our expense report, there's that encumbrance.
You have the
column.
encumbrances
Yeah.
column,
Right.
and some of that you
That-
somehow,
that would
you
be if we
encumbered it, but you
used
didn't
would
use it or
fall
something
right
like that.
there.
Like you
All right.
budgeted for it, but didn't
Yeah.
quite
Been
that
there
much.
for years and
Okay.
finally.
Yep.
We try to keep, they try to keep it as low as possible at year end, get rid of all those things that have been outstanding, but there's always some.
So this is a
Some
reconciliation
carryover.
of a component of
Correct.
that. Thank you.
Correct.
right, so the next set of statements on 20 to 22 is the proprietary fund statements, and this encompasses the activity of the Water Pollution Control Authority, the Congregate Elderly Housing at Silverbrook Estates, and the Internal Health Service Fund. So just some highlights from this page is off. The WPCA and Silverbrook Estates both operate at a slight surplus. Now, on the bottom of page 21, both of them have slight deficits. But the reason for this is an accounting for the depreciation
Depreciation, right.
of assets. So it's not really from an operational standpoint in terms of how they were operating, but an accounting treatment at year end. WPCA had normal maintenance and repairs on equipment, but had some additional contractual obligations to the city of West Haven this year. Revenues were also slightly higher in fiscal year '23. So those are just some brief comments on this set of statements.
Okay.
After this, we go into the lengthy footnote discussions, so I'm gonna draw attention to a few of them just to go over some highlights and changes. On page 38, at the end of footnote 1, I don't know if there's an easy way to get there other than, yes.
Well, I was wishing a lot of times it shows you the number as you slide down the side. I don't see that.
You have to put that in.
Oh,
Oh, you just passed, yeah, a few
Okay.
pages up.
all right. Whoa,
One more, there you go.
okay.
So at the bottom there, part G of footnote 1 talks about the adoption of new accounting standards. Michelle spoke about this at the beginning of her her discussion that the town implemented GASB 96. This goes into a little bit more discussion on what it is, what was changed, and why. So pretty much, we had accounted for some new subscription-based IT arrangements that get similar treatment to how leases are done as well. So the next footnote I wanted to go to is footnote 4 on page 43 and 44.
Yeah, I don't know why they have this blank pages for you.
Well, it seemed like going smaller seemed to help life a while back, but I don't know what's going on here.
Because I don't have any blank pages.
All right, we better go by
By the paper.
the paper, and the folks at home,
Absolutely.
we can get it to them.
So 43 to 44, footnote 4, has some discussion. This was implemented last year, fiscal year '22, on leases. This discusses the significant leases that the town has entered into, what some of the significant components are of that lease, and then following that, talks about the future payments that are going to go out over the course of those
Receipt.
leases. Oh, sorry. Future receipts.
Receivables.
Sorry, yes, receipts of those leases under those agreements through fiscal year '93. So we got a little ways to go. The next footnote I wanted to talk about is footnote 10 on page 53. But 53 starts the discussion of the pension plans. As usual, pension plan disclosures and footnotes are quite lengthy. I wanted to just focus on page 58, which talks about the liabilities for the town associated with those plans. So on 58, there's a graph schedule there that depicts how the two plans, the police and the town, have done in the current year. Overall, the net pension liability, which is at a pinpoint 6:30 point in time, what the actuarially determined and calculated liability is to the town compared to what is currently funded in the pension plans. The net difference is either a pension asset or a pension liability. The town of Orange has a net pension liability of approximately 18.9 million for the combined plans, but in fiscal year '23, there was a decrease in the overall liability due to the performances of the investments in the plans. Fiscal year '23 had significant gains in all of the investments, and the town made all of its required contributions to the plans. So overall, the plans ended off in better health in fiscal year '23. There is more detailed schedules on pages 76 to 81. I'm not going to stop there right now, but it gives you a 10-year trend line of different characteristics of the plans, percentages of funding each year, how much is the covered payroll, what are the costs associated with the plans that determines the liability. And this is a rolling 10-year schedule, so it can give you a good analysis point to see how the plans have been doing.
I think I finally found a way to get page 58 up there for you.
Okay, great.
And I have a question on 59,
Sure,
so if there
absolutely.
is something you
We
want to
can go there right now,
emphasize.
yes. Before, yep.
Well, do you want to reinforce anything while we have this up here?
No, that was about it,
You
yes. Yep, I'm good.
I'm looking at the bottom there on 59, just quizzical mind. Amounts reported as deferred outflows of resources related to pensions will be recognized in pension expense, doesn't sound like a good thing, as follows, all right, and I'm seeing numbers down there. And what surprises me is the rapid shift once you get to the year of 2026. Is the discount rate changing at that point, or what's
No,
making
that actually
happen?
has nothing to do with the discount rate. It actually has to do with, right above it,
Yes,
it's one of these actuarial things and GASB things that they put in, when they put in the new pension standards.
yes,
Normally in a balance sheet, you see assets, liabilities, and fund balance, right?
Yeah.
Well, now we have deferred inflows and outflows. So, most accounting people like say, what are deferred inflows and outflows? Well, GASB came up with this new terminology. It's extremely confusing. The actuaries know how to do it. It's basically differences between projected and actual earnings on pension plan investments. It could relate to actuarial assumption changes on your two plans. It's only related to the difference between projected and actual earnings. And then what happens is that is amortized over a 5-year period.
Oh,
Okay, so it's it's
so it smooths
you
the
have the
curve.
liability, and then you have these potentially deferred inflows and outflows that net to that. So you get your pension expense, and then these get factored into that calculation that the actuaries do.
Okay. So something to be concerned about.
I wouldn't be concerned about that.
John says no.
Our pension plans are in good shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would go by.
He's got a discount rate of 6%, they got a return of 8.3,
Yeah.
so.
I
yeah,
mean,
they're doing
again, we
very
have this
well.
discussion
Yeah.
every year. It's a point in time.
What's
It's
your discount
actuarial
rate at
assumptions.
your place?
My discount rate at Meriden is 7.25. I've been trying to drop it.
Wow.
When I got there, it was 8.
I can't believe it
pension-
hasn't dropped.
We've dropped it,
The
right?
pension committee has dropped it
Yeah.
Yep.
every year except for this year.
Essentially, that makes it more conservative when you drop it.
Yeah.
Means
Correct.
your-
Correct.
Which
Means
means
your
your
liability is higher.
Our funding is not as
deposit
high.
goes
Yeah.
in. No, your funding actually
Yeah,
goes
it's
Goes
higher.
higher.
You're gonna,
Goes
you
higher.
gotta contribute more.
You gotta give more, yeah. But you're more protected, I think,
More
than if you were at a
conservative.
8 or a 7
Yeah.
and a.
Close to
Yep.
yours.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the
Funding,
same
yeah.
thing with, when the market goes up, like the market went up pretty high the last year.
John, you have to have everything on, just leave it on, I would recommend.
When the market goes up, there's a 5-year smoothing on it too. So if
Right.
1 year it goes up crazy and the next year it goes down crazy, it smooths
happens.
it over
Well, we got
5 years.
2008, I think is when that started, because we got clobbered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
22 and 23.
Okay,
22
thank
is
you,
down.
Andrew.
No, yeah,
Very
if you look
strong.
at that 10-year thing in the back, you'll see the big negative in
Yep.
22 and the
Yep.
positive in 23, so.
Yep.
Those actuarials probably make more money than all of us at the table
Absolutely.
combined here.
But they're more boring.
That too.
That is true.
Though nobody said accounting people are,
Who said? They don't know the right accounting people.
I guess not.
So the next footnote after, if we're all set on pensions, if there's no more questions, the sister statement that came out right after pensions was related to OPEB. So footnote 11 relates to OPEB. On page 67 is, again, a chart of the change of the OPEB liability, which, just like the pension liability, appears on the face of the financial statements. So we have about another page. Yep, there it is.
Okay.
So OPEB liability, just like pensions, is calculated on an actuarial level. They have different assumptions about mortality rates, how long people are going to live, male, female, gender, identity, everything that they use to come up with these numbers about approximately how long someone will need to have, will receive these benefits. So as you can see here on the middle of the page, the total OPEB liability decreased approximately 3.7 million to 39.4. Again, this is due to different actuarial computations. The discount rate went from 3.5 to 3.65 due to the municipal bond rate index. And just like the pension plans, the OPEB does have, again, a rolling 10-year schedule on page 82 of the financial statements, which show different, characteristics of the OPEB plan and how it has performed over that 10 years.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you don't fund your OPEB.
Right.
You just like pay as you go kind of thing. So that's all the benefit payments there, so you don't see a pension trust or an OPEB trust fund next to that to offset that liability.
Okay.
And that concludes my kind of prepared remarks for highlights. But we're welcome to discuss things that we've gone over, things that we haven't gone over, if people have questions on that right now.
Yeah, page 52, in keeping with the theme that I mentioned right at the outset. There's a whole bunch of fund balances, or general funds, and I'll get to that page. But page 52 is where I'm headed. 59, I can actually see it now, there it is. Okay. So I see the 603, Michelle and Andrew over on the left on the general fund unassigned, of a total of 20,509 under the general fund. I still see the OBNA, $1.9 million there as negative. And then I also see the $3,706,000, which I think is what the total is in the back of the 27 funds. Yeah,
That
page
is correct.
91,
Yeah.
right. That's the 27
It-
individual.
It better be. If not, we
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
change something.
page 91. That's 3,706,487, so I was happy to see that. And I think you've already mentioned it, although I still don't kind of understand how, practically speaking, maybe I should hide under that umbrella. The ratio of money in the bank that you have unassigned, when you're reliable for this 1.9 accounting-wise for the OVNA, current state, we all wish every next few years they're positive 250, positive 400, that 1.9 comes down. We're all in on that. But I'm wondering how come that ratio doesn't include the liability right now for this OVNA?
Well, because the ratio is strictly what we call it. It's general fund to budgeted expenditures. We could call it general fund less OVNA and come up with a different calculation.
Which is
But-
what I do when I give you
Right.
our general fund thing. I'll start with that 18,603.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a line item for the deficit.
So you'll
on
take that right
OV&A.
off.
Right.
And then I'll have another line item for the deficit. I believe the OV&A is gonna run up this current year.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you the percentages to our current budget.
Yeah, 'cause that's
So
real-
that's
yeah,
gonna,
that's the
that's
real
gonna take that, what
And
was
that's
that,
from the-
24 number down to like 17 or 18, something like
Okay,
that.
okay.
So.
That's where the
So
difference is
if you wanna
there.
see that percentage, you have to tell John to amend his management discussion and analysis, because that's the only place that percentage,
Yeah,
we don't have it
yeah.
in the audit report, it's only in his
To be
management
honest with you
discussion and
though, all
analysis.
auditors really do it the same. They
Yeah.
base it on the unassigned fund balance to general fund.
Correct.
And I wouldn't wanna.
Because if we
change the
didn't have
management letter
V&A, we'd
because-
have that money.
Right,
But,
and
right,
then
but I
you
wouldn't wanna
start
change the
conflating.
management letter either, because when we go to bond, I
Right.
don't wanna call that out.
Right,
That
that's-
OV&A
yeah,
problem, I
right.
want them to dig for it if they're gonna find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're trying to get best of both worlds. I support that idea. I just think there is a risk that you could easily come away with thinking we have more flexibility than apparently what I'm hearing we really do.
No, you have less flexibility.
Less flexibility, excuse me, I said
Less
more.
flexibility.
But I think you,
But John
in
knows it,
general,
so, yeah.
and you're all having the, or
We all
have
know.
had and continue to have the discussion about it. So
Okay.
it's not that it's not out there.
Yeah, it's not an unknown.
Okay,
Right.
so we just need to educate others and,
And it also still maintains a healthy fund balance.
Right.
oh, for
Even
sure.
Oh,
less than
absolutely.
OVNA,
Absolutely.
more than,
Well, then
Absolutely.
If
we'll
that
have the
fund
joy of
balance
going
were-
through our capital requests and guess where those are gonna come from. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what we do.
roads.
but
But how many years it took OVNA to accumulate this 1.9 million loss?
4 years,
4
Probably
years.
4 or 5.
4
yeah.
years, I think.
So let's say,
also it's compounding, it's,
Yeah,
or
it
it's
is,
going up.
Right.
like
so it's
that.
cumulative
Haven't
over
actually-
4 years.
Correct.
So if
Ever
OV,
paid it off.
so the only way this 1.9 will go away from these statements is if OVNA is closed.
Or.
Well, they start
or
making
over
money.
the next few
Generating
years,
profit.
they
Generate
start
some
generating
profit.
profit. If
Which,
they clo-
which
if-
seems unlikely.
If they close it, then we're gonna have to do an entry to reduce our fund balance by
Correct.
whatever
By
that
that
deficit
By that
is.
deficit.
Just the way I was thinking.
Correct.
Correct.
So then
Okay.
it would have to true up essentially.
Correct.
Okay. But at this moment in time, we're taking it as an OZIP.
Right. If you remember, the only other fund that we have that has a deficit is the Board of Education cafeteria fund.
Not
And that's only,
anymore.
not anymore? Oh, since COVID, okay.
You would've
See, I
seen-
didn't even look
See,
at it.
you would've
But
seen
that's
it. You
been-
would've seen it.
But that's been $75,000 for years
Oh,
and
yeah.
years. But that's nothing, $75,000 in a $80 million budget. It's
Right,
nothing.
it's not a lot. you know.
I'll take it.
You see, COVID did something good, didn't it?
Absolutely. There's all those free meals, all that free meal
All the
money.
free lunch.
Well, we actually all paid for it, so. Or will be paid.
It'll be nice.
Mike, if you're listening, I'll call you tomorrow and congratulate you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, so we'll need a motion to approve the audit report.
Make a
Yeah,
motion
send
to
it out.
accept.
Okay,
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, unanimous.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
See you all again.
Yeah,
I'll
You wanna
make
take a
a
break?
bond council
All right, do we have
happy
a
because
motion
they'll
to
get
take a
the report
5-minute
before
recess?
filing
Yeah.
on February
Motion made, second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. 7:50. Item number 5 is the Amity update. Joe is still up at the Amity Finance Committee meeting. I don't know, Jim, did you have anything to add there?
Well, I have a, I have a slide I threw together. It's probably useful to throw up. I won't wear it out, but it's kind of hanging in the back here, so I can use it. Yeah, there was a revised. I don't know what's going on tonight.
I can tell you.
Well, I've read the agendas. Other than that.
Well, I went there before I came.
Oh, okay. But there was the initial one that we saw here that had these numbers here, 4.9%. There was a document that came out on the 12th of February that had some reductions in the overall budget. When you peeled back the onion a bit, there was an additional debt reduction of 125,767. You can see that. And so now the debt reduction went up by that amount. It's sitting here. So by process of elimination, that left the numbers 4.58, and then that led to all the math you see up here. That last year we spent 54,552, 759. The new number as of that date, February 12th, was 57,053, 909, with that level of increase, with that percentage increase. Given that this was additional debt reduction, that added to that, and then you had a resulting, what's the non-debt number, which we discussed last time here. So in this budget revision, the superintendent's proposed budget for next year increases non-debt spending by over $3 million, a 6.1%, 11% increase within the overall 4.58%. The document, I think I still have it on from.
So that 6.11% that you're talking about is what, when you say adding in that debt?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think this is where the document, and I don't know if you've even seen it, Anna, or anybody else on this team, but this is, let me slide it up, I think I can. Okay, this is part of the AFC documentation, the last page, actually. He said, trying to get to it. So it was a budget update. It was dated the 5th. It was presented on the 12th. It had a number of items, I think I can slide down, that were reductions, and those were in the white, and I believe, and the additions were in the orange, if I've got it right. But anyway, the total is 172,734 was the change. That brought the overall number, as you can see there, down to 57,053, 909. And one of the major ones within it was that debt service reduction. that you can see that number right there. So that was a slide that I had prepared. I had it in backup for tonight's meeting, team, but that's what I know at this moment.
Okay.
So if I may, when, at the superintendent's updated presentation at the AFC, combined AFC Board of Ed meeting, so they're doing something a little new this year. They're having their conversation about the budget as a combined meeting rather than AFC meeting prior and then the Board of Ed meeting. And so out of that, there was another update since this slide, since the update that Jim just showed. And actually, there's something I might ask you to navigate to under budget on this. Well, anyway, I'll get there in a minute, because it's what Ajit asked at the February 2nd meeting, but I can also just read it. So they're taking on more liability with medical insurance, reducing by $300,000. They are also,
They added 300 to the insurance?
no,
Oh.
they're gonna take on more liability, so they're gonna reduce it by 300,000. They are also anticipating, based on information from Orange, 3 students that they had not anticipated being outplaced, to the tune of about $100,000 each. They have only put in 95,000, so they're gonna try to bring those students back in, 2 of those students. But that's a huge risk because they don't know if they can actually do that, so that might put them in a different situation. But anyway, that along with, so that reduction in anticipated medical insurance and a couple other things brought them to 4.18, I believe. And then, I don't think it's under those.
No,
That's the agenda, but, and
Oh,
then,
okay.
with a couple other reductions, that I can probably read. So the medical insurance adjustment was 307,000, but then they had to put back in 95, so their total adjustment down was 212,763 to get them to 4.19. They made a few other adjustments, which include changing some things around: boiler controls, middle school painting, pipe insulation, parking lot maintenance, keyboards, middle school wrestling coach, taking that out. There's not currently a middle school wrestling coach, but they took out that, adding that in. And high school math tutors gets them down to 3.97%. So that is the recommended budget for tonight. Last time, when we met on February 2nd, Ajit had asked what was just if you wanted just the increase for contractual raises, benefits, and then mandated special education. Remember you asked for that? And so I have it, I can just read it off here. It's 2.77% of the increase is mandated contractual raises. 0.57% of the increase is benefits for employees. And then 0.67% of the increase is mandated special education programs. So those are the ones that are the non-negotiables, have to be added in there. 0.3% of the budget is for the other things.
We had a discussion on some of these very points. Trying to find the specific location.
Thank you for that. Sure.
Because this slide would say, from the earlier budget, that all of the proposed budget increase that was due to salaries, lower left of this slide, and the total increase in benefits was 2.1 million. What I was trying to do on the right-hand side was do an estimate of what the increase in staff that was in this budget was costing. I think you were questioning, Anna, whether or not 60,000 per FTE would be a proper assumption at that night.
Right.
And we never resolved it. It certainly isn't 0. But one of the costs in that budget within the 2.175 for both salaries and benefits is these new FTEs. And if it's not 600,000, it's probably, I don't know, it probably maybe 400,000 to 500,000. It would have to be calculated, okay? So I'm just gonna mention that some of the numbers you've just mentioned, the 2.77, the 0.577, I would be looking for more detail from, and by the way, where did you get that document?
I took pictures of it from Jen's presentation,
Uh,
but I think it's up there on the website.
I just looked, I couldn't
I can
find
try
it, but
to-
we can,
We can navigate around it,
yeah.
because I saw it yesterday as well.
So that's all I have, Kevin, in terms of an Amity update.
But, and what I was taking exception with your kind of round number of almost $80,000 for one FTE, that X as if all of those FTEs are the same, right? That would be basically if everybody was essentially a master's step 4 or 5 teacher, whereas like the
Is
math
that who
tutors.
gets 60,000?
So that would be the average, that plus, 60,000 plus 19,800, but if you're hiring a tutor.
Oh, hold
they're
on,
not gonna be-
hold on. That's for benefits.
No, 60,000 is the salary.
Correct.
19,800 is the benefit. So
Okay.
the total for a teacher, let's say, is about 80,000.
For,
That's what-
for your average teacher at Amity's salary, as we spoke that night, and now we're doing it again apparently, having heard averages for all teachers in Amity has always been over $80,000.
Right, so when Terry and Jen do their budget, they basically, if they're adding in a new position, a new teaching position.
Yes.
They just take master step 5, right? So they go and and if that's what that is, I don't know, because I haven't looked at the.
What piece?
But the point is that 7.58 per FTE was not all teachers. So some of those that are coming out, like the high school math tutors, those are not certified, the
They're not at
coaching positions,
80,000.
They're not gonna be the 80,000. So you're
Well-
not gonna see a reduction
Right.
of, even half of 80,000 if it's a 0.58.
So I'll finish with my point. Those numbers that I heard said that were in there, I believe also include some, if not all, of the increased 7 or 8 positions, FTEs of some sort.
Yeah, I don't
I don't know for
I don't
sure
know.
either.
If you do want to find these slides, that's under Board of Education, under Budget, 24-25 Superintendent's Budget Board of Ed Presentation, February 2024. That's what's
Okay.
updated.
I will do that.
Thank you. All right, item number 6, we're still with Jim.
Okay, thank you. I made some, I've been hearing, and I think I've heard from Kevin, I've heard from John. There's some things I think we could clear up around town,
Or make worse.
or make worse. Everybody at home, if anybody listening, on OGAT, we've all gotten our recent home reevaluations. So I tried to use an example, having the big data most at hand, my own home. I use that as an example, so I'm gonna make a few comments of that. There are a couple of other variables, I've talked a little bit with John and maybe briefly with Kevin and perhaps others, on other variables that are gonna impact residential taxes. And I've also did a first cut estimate, so as you see up in the yellow there, V1, in my world, that means a first draft on a lot of this stuff, so let's dive in. So here are the various topics. In my world, spending is what drives taxes. I mean, pretty much the way it is. It's and so that's going to be one thing I talk about briefly. I'm going to talk about reminders about reevaluation assessments, and hopefully some of the things that people have been saying we can modify and put some things at ease. So that would be the updates to your home revaluation. Talk about the variables that impact these residential taxes to cover the spending, how your residence compares to another residence in town, for example, and there's also a very important one that we'll talk about the difference of asset increases, I called it residential versus commercial. I summed it up and have a listing with John's help on the department budgets as of a few weeks ago. So those will be modified, including a lot of our own, as we have work to do. And then some key meetings, that's the slide I've always done, so I'll just dive in. When you talk about the driver of taxes, it pretty much is the spending, all right? It comes from the 3 major components in town. We've seen that slide before. And just as in our homes, the more you spend, the more income you need to cover that spending. I mean, that's just like your house. We've tried over the years, with the graph on the lower right, to emphasize, even small budget increases, we use the 1% versus 4% per year over 10 years, to emphasize, okay, they can build up year over year to have significant long-term impact. It's a good thing if it's your money in a savings account or getting a bond premium, but maybe for spending, we could look at it differently. And taxes are the major source of our income in the town. Last year, for example, 92.3% in fiscal 23-24, the current year we're in, actually, is what comes from taxes and the mill rate. Now, some reminders about the reevaluation assessments. For everybody's knowledge, just so everybody's on the same page, every 5 years, towns and municipalities across Connecticut conduct a revaluation of all their assets, right? We have 3 major categories: real estate, business, personal property, and motor vehicle, right? Off to the right, you can see what was in our slide of our town budget hearing last year and what the increases were from one year to the next. We'll have a similar slide this year, I'm sure. So the total of all these 3, the real estate, the business personal property, and the motor vehicle, looks like I have an MY there, so there's an edit I can do, in the town is called the grand list, all right? So what the mill rate's role is to apply a tax rate on all these assets, right? Because that's the value in the town, to cover the spending. That's kind of the name of the game. So that's my reminders about assets. So every one of us have gotten an update on your home reevaluation. I got mine, and this is what it told me. 495 Lambert Road is where I lived. I've been there 40 years. And in the last couple of years, really, I think, is when the major increase has been, but I don't know for sure. But certainly since the old revaluation, it's gone from 214,000 to 288.7, right? So the increase has been 74,700. That's 34.9%. So the good news is the value of the homes have gone up significantly in the past few years. You have more money, really, or assets anyway, right? The assets process going up are a good thing to a homeowner's net worth, right? That's a very good thing. But many variables will impact the amount of taxes paid on all of our assets, including homes, right? In other words, the mill rate. But one thing for sure, if people are watching on OGAT tonight, one thing that is not going to happen is you're not going to have your taxes go up by the percentage of increase of your home. All right? Mine went up 34.9%. That is not going to happen. All right? And I think that was something, I think, Kevin, you had mentioned to me that you had heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
And John, I think you had said, Kevin, you might have, I don't know if you have or not, but anyway. All right? I would like everybody in the town of Orange who owns a home to know that will not be going up that. We don't think, unless yours went from nothing to whatever. Okay. I was asking myself, why was this happening this year? So I went back and I said, what was my valuation last time? So over on the white, I noticed that my last one was 210.5. And I said to myself, oh, I see. We were getting used to the fact that our assets really, our home values really weren't going up that much, right? I mean, 210.5, 214, 210.5, what would that be? That would be 3.5K, something like that, right? Which would be about 1% and 1.7%. So it seemed to be a natural thing when you all of a sudden got, everybody knew their house values were going up. But when you get the thing from the tax assessor saying, oh, here's your new valuation, it's, I think, understandable, particularly given the history, how people could fall into, oh my God, my taxes are going to go through the roof. They're not, all right? They may be going up more than we like, but so have our asset values, all right? So that was one thing I wanted to get out there. Okay. Whoops. I don't know if it's going to go forward. All right, so there's two other variables. I've accomplished that. Now I want to tell you about two other variables and explain it as best I can. I have learned from John that about our average real estate, residential real estate went up 33% on average. Okay? Now, this is very important. Now, that house, 495 Lambert Road, where I've been for 40 years, went up a little higher than that. All right? 34.9. So with a bell curve, and I'm not sure it's exactly that kind of bell curve, but there's some distribution of how much percentage-wise all the assets of homes have gone up. All right, and we'll get that from Mark Brancasi, and we'll figure it all out. All right, but clearly on this one variable only, all right, if you're on the right side, that X, like I am, but I'm only a little to the right side of G, all right, I'm not far from 33. All right, mine went up more than the rest of the town on average. So I know from this one variable, I'm going to be paying a little more than if Kevin's went up 33, or if yours went up 25, 30, yeah, compared to what you paid. Now, you're
Percentage,
probably
right.
paying more than me because of the asset value of the house, whatever it is. But always we do this based on the asset values of the homes, okay? So on this variable number one, item 3 there on the side, 495 Lambert Road will pay slightly more taxes on this than an average property increase. Only on this one variable, okay? Only on this one variable. All right. I want to make sure if you got edits, please tell me now. I'll use this going forward. Okay. Next one's a little different. And this has to do with our asset increases residential to commercial. So first of all, let's get grounded. Our grand list which is all the property, pays for 92.3. So most of our income, most of the revenue for how we spend money, all right, comes from the big blue part of the chart there, which is we call property taxes, all right? So then I was saying to myself, okay, what's going on here? And I'll go through the analysis. Permit me to go slow. I don't want to be making believe I'm teaching, but let me communicate what's on the slide. What's happened is this. So grand list assets pay 92.3% for our spending, all right? Whatever that budget turns out to be. The split of this in the past has been about 70-30. Now, Kevin, I don't know for a fact it's exactly 70-30. I got the Excel sheet. We can punch it in and we can see what the number would be, okay? But here's the big deal. The two left bullets near the third and fourth bullet on the left. Residential assets went up an average 33%, all right, since the last time we did it. The commercial assets didn't go up as high. And I think anybody who would have guessed that, right? We got places that are empty, we still get the taxes from the property, but their value in aggregate has gone up less, 17%, than the asset values of residential. All right. So here's how I did the math, the analysis I said up there, okay, on the blue. The tax shift due to increase in residential assets compared to commercial assets. So I said to myself, okay, here's 70-30, that makes up 100, 100 being this 92.3%, right? So it's making up that chunk of the circle, all right? So then I said, okay, this one goes up with this. So I just multiplied that out, one plus this, 101.33%, right? And then you get 93.1. It's just a math. And then I took the 30 and I multiplied by 17%, and I got 35.1, all right, increase. And then I said, okay, now I've got two new numbers, and you total them up and you get a base, right? So what I was really looking for is what is this ratio, 93.1, compared to that base, right, 128.2. And Excel tells me it's 72.6, which makes sense because this asset went up faster than this asset. So it has to have a bigger share of the total after it's all said and done. So I did the same, or Excel did the same with commercial, and you did 35.1, and what is it as a percentage? 128.2. And it turns out to be 27.4, and of course it has to add up to 100, right? Because we're doing ratios of parts to a whole. All right. So what does this mean? What this means, and I was a little surprised by this means that for each asset class, it's going to go up 3.74% in residential, right? Because we have shifted more of the burden of taxes onto residential because their values are higher. It's just a mathematical fact. The good news is that we have assets that are worth more, but there's a cost to that. So too, commercial will go down, all right? So I sum it up in the kicker box over on the box on the right bottom, that the residential assets will see an average, what I'll call a tax shift increase. That tax shift being of 3.74 from this macro residential to C variable alone. Now, I'm happy to know, first draft, that I could be doing math wrong here. But this is the way it seemed to me. So I'll open it first to this team for comments, or way off, or seems right, but I'm surprised, whatever you want to say, okay? But I want to make sure we're on the same page.
So
Okay.
Jim, I have a comment about your last column, percentage increase for each asset class. So I understand these numbers, like what percentage contribution is from each asset class. But just simply looking at these numbers, this may give an impression that tax burden is shifting from commercial to residential.
It is.
It isn't suggesting, it's a
Right.
mathematical fact.
Yes, but overall, commercial will be paying more taxes as well.
Well,
Not
but-
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
They might be paying less.
I would say,
If the asset value has gone up by 17% for commercial, why will be they paying less?
Because the residents are picking up the burden.
Yes.
We need the whole grand list of what's
Yeah.
what to finalize this, but.
For sure.
But if, if taxes stay flat, say we were able to do, last year we didn't have a budget increase. Hypothetically, we stay flat. Commercial's going down, we're all going up.
Right. By
Right,
8 points.
overall,
'Cause we're-
overall
'cause-
chunk,
because
right,
of the
Kevin?
shift
But
in the
let's say if I
balance.
own a commercial property,
It'll go down,
my taxes will go down?
correct.
For the
If
commercial.
if we take last year's budget and say no tax increase, it's the same as last year. Because of the shift to the residents, the commercial taxpayers will they'll get a reduction and we'll all have increases.
Essentially, with the reevaluation, shifting with the residential going up and the commercial going not up as much, the burden shifts more to the residential to pick up that if you stayed at flat, right? So, my question is, just so I'm clear on, it, if we do have to go up in our overall budget, it still will be roughly 3.74% if all things, other things being equal?
this would be what
Or is it
you're-
really just the shift? in
No,
the-
no. What this would mean, in my mind, I spent most of today trying to do this, and talking with John a couple of times. Let's just say, whatever we had for a total budget last year, we had the exact same total budget from
Right.
all three
And I think
this year.
That's where that comes in.
That's
Right.
what you're
Right,
on
that's-
average doing. You would have an average 3.75, and you'd have an average of
Negative.
negative 8.75. Now, within the residential, you'd still have this.
Right. So if my home value only went up 25%,
You'd
then
have a
I would pay
favorable
less-
variance,
I would pay
you could
less
think of
than
it
You might be
that way.
paying
2.74%,
2% instead of a
right.
3.74.
Yeah,
John,
there
were
you
you
go.
gonna say something?
Yeah, I did speak with Mark Brancese today. He's back working part-time from his illness.
Oh, I didn't
He hopes to
know he
have
was
a
ill.
grand list to me on Friday.
Okay.
I'll send it out to you with my calculations. And Jim,
Do you have our mill rate calculation that you could put up from last year? This might help everybody.
Oh, you
You know
mean from
that-
what we presented at the,
No, that calculation that I do, that I give you the mill rate.
just give me a minute. Yes, I have.
What I'm also gonna do, once I get the grand list, I'm gonna take each of your properties, and I'm gonna take your assessed value before the reevaluation, and I'm gonna take your new one, and I'm gonna figure out what the mill rate needs to be to bring in the same amount of taxes that we're bringing in the current budget. And that'll show you, that'll give you the differences between your old
What, but we need the
reval
whole
and re-
grand list to do
Right.
that accurately with
Right,
the commercial
right.
versus.
But that'll give you all a good idea of
And I
what your
think just
differences
based on this
are.
and based on my going through this, and we talked about this before the meeting started, because John was on the board, and I don't remember if
Right.
Kevin was, when we did the 5-year phase-in,
Yep.
We froze it at the second year, that's when the recession then hit.
Right.
but we were gonna go 20% of the increase, 40, 60, 80, until we
Right.
got to 100.
Right,
And,
right.
and we
was
might have had a
06.
joint meeting, because the Board
I
of
think it
Selectmen
was a
might have had to
joint-
do that.
I think it was a joint meeting between us and the Board of Selectmen, and we recommended to the Board of Selectmen the 5-year phase-in, and then they voted for it.
That was
I
06
think
to
it's in-
09.
I think we need to do that again with this, but that's for everybody to discuss next week. But I think this, the increase
All at once would be.
is too dramatic. And for the commercial to get, you know,
You know what?
Less.
I love
got
our
it.
commercial taxpayers, but to get a 9% reduction,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big nut for residents, for sure.
Here it is, John.
You got it?
And it has to be happening in a lot of other communities, so
Okay.
Oh, it
I
is.
just
Yeah,
haven't
no,
seen
for-
what others are planning on
For
doing.
your,
But we
since
did the
you're new
phasing
the
on our own
board,
the last
Yeah.
time.
I do
Okay,
this
Gene.
calculation every year, and it gives us our mill rates in our grand list. You'll see in item B there. It's the grand list for the real property, then the personal property and the motor vehicles. And then I figure out what the mill rate needs to be to cover what our spending's gonna be. You see it at 32.31 there, and you see what it'll generate in taxes for each group.
So if I change this
So-
number, it'll pop right up.
Right. If you change that number to say 20 right now, because I think that's where our grand list is gonna be, somewhere around there.
256, just leave it like that.
256. And you can see how it changed. You're able to see the difference in the spread between the 3 different properties.
Yep.
And I'll send last year's to you and the new one with the mill rate that would generate the same number of taxes, and you'll be able to see that. I think that'll help clarify
And
for
it'll show how
everybody.
dramatic this really is.
Right.
And with your own, I'll give you the sheet with each of yours properties on it, so you can all compare each other's and see what the
And I think
increase is.
part of it, you know, because the gym's increase, my increase is, I'm not gonna pick on myself, but the lower, you know, I have a 3-bedroom ranch by the community center. Those houses really got pumped up
And speaking with
because of
Brancaisi
the whole
today.
COVID thing. And
he's-
a house that was 900 might be 1.1.
Yeah.
But a house that was 300 went to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your
Speaking-
percentage increase, your value,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
both
your
went up
percent.
200, but your
Right.
base
Yours
was
is a
3
lot
versus
more.
a 9.
Speaking with Brancaisi today, he seemed to suggest that the older houses in town that were lower in value last time really took the hit this time.
Yeah.
Because these people are coming in and
Yeah, you can't find a
they're
house.
just paying for it.
It's all based on demand, really.
Yeah.
It's economics 101. I mean,
Right.
those are the highest demand houses that are being requested. So it's part of the equation.
Yeah.
Well, I did sum it up, but you guys are, you know, go to the head of the class. Good job by you guys. Because I felt like I needed to. Because now we have 3 variables that impact residential taxes. Now, all of our budgets, and Anna has already been discussing tonight information she got from a meeting earlier, that started earlier tonight. And with Joe not here, maybe it's still going on. But our town operations, this is the pros budget impacts increases, all right, to Orange as of a couple weeks ago, so it's not current. But you start to get the idea that there will be tax shift due to department spending. There's tax shift due to Jim's home versus everybody else's home in town, the bell curve. And then there's the tax shift due to the residential assets compared to commercial assets. And Kevin, I think your instinct, and Kevin, you, and Anna, your instincts are right. You could start to see that, and I wasn't sure, by the way, how to estimate the impact of being off by 33, and mine was 34 point, I had no idea. Right? I didn't know a mathematical way to do it, so I just put 0.25, I put estimate. But if you can see, if you have a spending increase of 5.89, and you have some kind of a shift, plus or minus, in the middle, all right, where you are in that bell curve. And some are gonna be way out, so those could be major ones. And then you have the residential, focusing only on residential, 3.76. You can see you're close to 10%, right? Unless I do my thinking wrong, Kevin. Which I think supports the argument of a phase-in of some form, right? And I think all along the way, I heard John talking about, significant reductions in that 2.4. That's for us for another time, but he's already mentioned numbers to me that are in the 40 to 50% range as a starting condition, all right, on town operations. And we'll just have to work it. That's our job.
Yeah, we have to work all three components of the budget real hard this year. Amity, Orange Board of Ed, and the town. I mean, looking at the numbers today in the audit, I mean, the town has a 21.5% fund balance if you minus out the OV&A. And
Based on last year's budget.
based on last year's,
Yeah.
yeah, right. But if you look at the average, I mean, Amity has averaged about $2 million surplus over the last 5 years. The town has averaged $2.6 million surplus. That includes the difference with
Includes
the
half of
town
the
is.
Amity surplus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
The town revenues are really, I mean, they're performing very strong, which is good. I mean, John has been budgeting conservatively on the town side, which leads to surpluses on the revenue side. But if you look at the 5-year average of the expenditures on the town, that comes out to about $863,000 on average that we're under expending every year.
We need to do an analysis on
Yes,
that.
we do, yeah.
All right.
In
so
the
we
next
need
couple
to-
weeks.
We need to, no kidding, take a half day
Yep.
and just
Go through it.
honestly look at, create a spreadsheet, the major categories, see what we got. Then when we get an analysis, then we pull John in.
Yep.
John doesn't have to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
And then we just say, hey, John, what's up with this year? And then we
Right.
go back and we look it up and we find out.
Right.
And whatever we find out, we find out.
Yeah, because I think we're gonna lower the budget as low as we can get it without,
Oh, yeah, we have to.
if we have to.
I mean, we
Yeah.
can't go walking out at 10%.
No, no, no.
We
But
won't
that's
make it
why
up,
I think next week,
you know?
at our next meeting, maybe use an agenda to pick a date to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, because I think we should do a phase-in, and if anybody's against it, then we wouldn't have to
I think
call
what
a
you
meeting.
need to do is, you need to call Jimmy and try and work that out with him,
Okay.
with his board.
Well, let's use the calendar then to see what we have here. Kevin, if I remember right, OBOE coming next Monday?
Correct.
Okay, I left those 3 blue balls
And
in
should we
the,
talk about that quickly?
Yeah, why don't we?
That meeting, because, who's here?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay,
is
ZBA's got this room that night, so we've done it in the past, we're gonna meet
Go over there
at
first?
Mariel, yeah.
we got sandwiches and
board
everything
meeting?
else when we go over
I
there. It's
didn't- I
unbelievable.
didn't
We're
ask
cutting the
for
budget, Jim. We're not doing any sandwiches.
No, we don't see sandwiches on OBOF for about 20 years, I'll
right.
tell you that, but
No, they
what
did have,
happened.
they
They
did
do
have
have 'em all the
sandwich
time when we
wraps
go
for us
over
the
there.
last time.
God bless
Are we
America.
gonna
Tell 'em we don't
start
need
at
it.
6 o'clock over there? We need
Oh,
to be
6?
we need to be out of there by 9 o'clock, because otherwise
We're not
they
gonna
have to
be.
pay the janitor overtime.
There's
Let's
no,
shoot for
if we
8.
fill 3 hours,
Yeah,
I
we
would
won't
be
be
6
shocked,
to 8 at the most.
you know?
We got problems if we're there by now.
mean,
Yeah.
So
know.
6 PM at Mariel.
Yep, 6 PM.
Okey dokey.
Are we
Yeah.
gonna make it 6?
I can.
Yeah.
That's even closer to my house.
All right, I'll just change, I have a meeting
Yeah,
before,
right,
but I can
yeah.
change that and make it earlier.
That means John's home by,
Now-
8:04, right?
Do we wish to start looking at when we are going to meet and whatever magic we do? I know the selectmen, second Wednesday is the selectmen, in March, John?
Boy.
I won't be there.
He's out that week.
I'm out that whole week.
Okay, okay. Might we want to be, since it seems like we need to do a fair amount of work here, start thinking about setting dates next week after the 4th for doing additional somethings? We've talked, Kevin, you brought it up. To take the last 5 years and take the audited numbers as a starting point.
Yep.
All right, I might be able to, come up with, geez, we put in, well, let me, if I get the data from John, I could create some Excel spreadsheets for both revenues and expenses, all right?
Yeah, mainly
Can
the
you take a
expenses,
half
yeah,
day,
yeah.
like regular, like afternoons type of thing?
Yeah,
or-
it's
or-
tough for me this time of year, because I'm doing my budget.
He's in the budget.
I'm in my budget. If John sends us the information,
Right,
we can, I think separately, we can do our analysis and then share it, and then compare it.
well, how about this?
Yeah.
How about I get the information from John?
You
Yep.
got it already. All those departments, you have the information.
Last 5 years?
All right, well, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Maybe
Offline.
keep this
Well,
going
but what
on.
I'm
Yeah.
saying is create the spreadsheets and then send it out to
Yeah.
to members of the team.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're interested, sounds like
Yeah.
Anna's interested. All
All right, so
right,
John, you're out
All right.
the week of the 11th.
Right.
The 18th, we have a regular meeting.
Yep.
And we need to be done the week of the 25th.
yeah, I was hoping to be done by the 20th.
Yeah.
How can we push the thing forward regarding a potential phase in whatever we come up with? Do we have that trick in our bag?
I think you need to settle on a budget
Yeah,
before
I
you do
agree.
that.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean,
we have
you're
to go
going in and
with-
they're gonna ask, what's your budget number and what's the potential taxes?
If-
True enough, but we can.
I respectfully disagree. If we have a flat budget, so we don't spend one more dollar than last year, commercial's going down 9%. It's a reason right there not to do it all at once. And we know we're not gonna have a flat budget, it's impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We would be doing yeoman work if we cut that 4.9 in half. Okay? Which would mean, rather than 5.86, you could put up a 3 up there.
Well, I could start on the way because I've been working on budget cuts. And I have about 900,000 in proposed cuts. I could send them to you either tomorrow or Wednesday. You guys separately
yeah,
take
send
a
them
look
before,
at it
as long as we have
and see
them
if
well
you-
before Monday,
see
so
if
we
you
can.
guys agree with them.
talk.
If you get them back to me, if you all agree with them as a group, I could start making changes in the papers already.
I think that's true, but for the discussion of the need for rephasing, for the point
Yeah.
Kevin made, 10% reduction in commercial, and we're raising up whatever we end up being. And I said, if we cut 4.9 in, well, almost 5 million in half, that's 2.5, so that's a 3 up there rather than a 3.86. So you have a 3, and so you have, as a starting position, if you were a 33%er, okay, then it sounds to me, if the math's right, and I think it is,
7.1.
6.75 plus or minus whatever your bell curve thing is. And now,
And the majority of that will be paid by the residents, not, because commercial's still going down.
that's right, so
right. The
I
resident
think
would
we
be
can take that
6.75.
action now.
Yeah, no, I
So I can make a motion if we need one, but you tell me.
Would you want to discuss it with, the
Right, so
yeah, I'll
selectmen?
call Jim and we'll see if they're, get on their agenda or have a joint meeting with them for the beginning of one of their meetings for a half hour or 20. Shouldn't take much.
No.
I mean, we could send them this document. It may be off by some, but it's not off by much.
So that proposal and approval of that proposal would have to be before the budget goes out, because we would have to say,
Right, to
this
set
is
the
the
mill
real
rate.
budget, for the mill rate, but really we're only gonna,
And we'd have to figure out what the phase-in is.
Right.
We had, I remember.
3
it was
years.
20, 40, 60, it was a
Yeah.
5-year,
Five-year
20%
phase-in.
each year. But, and I think that's why we had the joint meeting at this table years ago, because, you know, we stated our position, and then the Board of Selectmen voted to do it, because I think they're the body that has to.
yeah, they would probably
do
have
it.
to be the one to.
But they're the one that says the phase-in. We're the one who has to work on numbers. But regardless of working the numbers, we can see, you get that
They-
down to 3 to 2.
If we do a
even
phase
so.
in, the numbers that Brancisi gives me for the grand list change. So you'll have to go back and rework those numbers too. I don't know how that works. I'd have to talk to him about that.
Well, we did it once before,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
I
did.
don't, I just don't know how it works. I was on this board, then I didn't have to do the mechanical part of it.
Here's what I would recommend, John, I would just not tell him what we just were talking about.
Well, that's.
Mark, just give us what the as-is is.
Well,
Yes.
Well, that's what he's gonna give us, right? He's gonna
Yeah.
give us the
Yeah,
grand
oh,
list.
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
So
but
we'll be able to,
after,
we'll be able to look and say, okay, the grand list is gonna, residential increases X. But now we're only gonna take 20% of that, because we're gonna phase it in over the prior tax.
yeah, I think he's gotta do some calculations to get there.
He does, because he's,
Oh, I
the new,
think I used
the
to- I
new
was working with him
assessed
last time.
values are only gonna be phased in 20, 40, 60, 80, 100.
Right.
I mean, that's Excel work, that just takes some
And
hours.
he's gotta do it, it's not just Excel work, because remember, his files then become the tax things. And you're talking about.
For the bills, yeah.
Right, you're talking about 6,000 properties.
Oh, I know, he sent me, he has
Joe.
sent me those documents in the past.
Yeah, I just don't know what he's gotta do, so I gotta talk to him about it, so he's prepared.
Right,
for it.
he's done it before,
Hey, Joe,
and,
And he's talked about doing it now.
because he
too,
knows,
so,
he
yeah.
knows the numbers, he knows what he's looking at,
Right.
and he knows that we're gonna be like, if there's a way not to like
Right,
kill our residents, we're gonna do
Right.
that.
right.
Because that has a huge impact too on what we can do for our departments and boards of ed and everything, because, you know, if it's the full shift, you know, that number to the people, it's a lot of people are gonna be over $1,000 increase, that's a lot.
Yeah.
20% of that's a lot better.
yeah.
So just to clarify in terms of dates, are we
Yeah.
gonna try to
Yes.
do the 13th? Because I have Wednesday night meetings I'm unable to do, but which is,
Well, John's out that week,
oh,
He's
right,
out
right,
that
right,
week
okay,
anyways,
all right.
so I
Well,
think we.
you could contact Jim Zioli
Yeah, I'll
tomorrow.
call him tomorrow.
And find out what
Yeah.
what he might wanna do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I-
and then if we meet the 4th, obviously with the Board of Ed, our next meeting's the 18th, and then I would think that week we'd have to have another meeting.
I would say probably
The 20th?
18th and either the 20th or 21st, and then wrap it up on the 26th if we can't do it on the 21st.
Whoa.
Or 25th,
Oh, I
whatever
know what
that
happened.
Monday was.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
if
Sam.
everybody can just check between now and Monday if they'd be available on the 20th or 21st.
I can't do the 20th, but I could do the 21st.
I'm
21st?
not available 21st.
No, that's the
Sorry.
beginning
I
of
won't
March
give you
Madness.
No, I teach that evening, so.
Yeah, Selection Sunday is the 17th.
All right,
Yeah,
well, I got a
there
Board
you
of
go.
Ed meeting, so.
So, we're talking
watch
about
March
potential
Madness.
meetings, oh, wait a minute, I was doing the potential meetings using the blue, violation on me. All right, so you're talking about the 21st?
Well, Ajit can't go the 21st,
Yeah, but you can't go on the
The
20th.
20th.
right, but what about the
I think we could
19th?
do it Friday.
Oh, 19th.
What about the 19th?
To me, it doesn't matter. I'll do it Friday because every day's the same this
What
time
about
of
the
year.
19th,
The
Tim?
only
Yeah,
problem
I
is,
teach on 19th.
But I
and
don't wanna do that to
21st.
other people.
I could do the 22nd too, as well.
What about up in here?
could do that.
Let's get a head start.
But if we don't have the grand list and all that data
Yeah.
by
Right.
Monday, it's
Right.
it's gonna
It's
be a
not
waste
worth
of
it.
time.
That's a week
Wait a minute,
away.
we're gonna have it Friday.
We hope.
Yeah, that's a
I
week
think
away.
Well,
we're gonna, I
well-
think we're gonna have a Friday.
I've heard it 3 times before we had this discussion, we're gonna have it Friday.
What about on the 4th, when we're,
Yeah, we can do it on the 4th.
Yeah, we just
Hang
stay.
it out.
But we have to be out of there by 9.
Well, we could come here.
Yeah,
If we have to, we just take a 2-minute drive and come here.
Well, we're gonna
Or
have,
walk.
I'm gonna have to post
healthier.
that then.
Okay,
yeah, just
Post it just in case.
Post it Friday,
yeah.
7:30.
9 o'clock, town hall meeting room.
9 o'clock.
Well, 8 o'clock. No, we're gonna get here at
Yeah,
8.
we'll be here by
Oh,
8.
Yeah, we'll be here by
Oh, okay.
8.
We're
So
gonna
you're
try to
gonna-
get
no
there by
way.
So
7:30.
you're gonna meet with the Board of Ed,
At
and
6.
then you're gonna adjourn after the
We'll be done with
presentation,
them by
and then
7
come over
o'clock.
here.
Yeah, I've never
Okay.
sat through one of theirs, but
Yeah, we'll be done with them by 7.
We'll come here right
We're gonna use their
afterwards.
meeting room until 8 because
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
ZBA's here until 8.
and if we had to, we could, you could
Yeah.
actually just post the meeting for Marielle,
Yeah,
and then if we had to, we could adjourn.
we'll meet there
here.
7 to 9, then we'll tell the janitor to lock up, we'll leave at 9.
So I'm
Give us a
hearing we're
deadline.
gonna have a combo on the 4th, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, we'll
Okay.
get as much done that night as we can.
Okay, and we're
And we're still
not
gonna tell
doing
the
any.
Board of Select?
Now, do we have
Come
to
at
go
7?
to the Board of Selectmen?
what?
Even if you're not here,
We're
John, I
gonna
think,
Come to the board, we're gonna ask the Board of Select to come on the 4th? Or is
No,
that-
no, I'm
that's
gonna
just gonna
call
be our
Jim to see if, yeah, that'll just be our meeting and then we'll,
Okay.
because when we're done with the budget, but we'll put it in their ear that we're gonna want a meeting to phase this in and not do it all at once. And then when we have more numbers on one of these dates, we'll be able to tell them what the impact is, so.
I
Alright, so
think
the 4th will
they
be
would
longer.
be favorable to
And then we'll
that.
figure it out after, other dates after that. We'll see how we do Monday.
So we also said the
Yeah, the
19th, Kevin, is that correct?
The 18th.
18th, excuse me.
Yeah, that's our.
That's our
a
normal
definite
meeting.
That's our normal meeting, so we have no
Maybe we can see if they could
additional
come to
other
that.
than that yet. Is that
Right,
correct?
that's what I would
Maybe
plan
we,
on that.
maybe we could try to do a joint
We
meeting
have a
there.
meeting
On the 18th, yeah.
Yeah.
We could
Try to-
get
Even
them-
if we started
You
at
trying to have a
6.
meeting on the 11th?
No,
Now, these colors are getting you goofed up, Joe.
yeah, no, we're not doing, so we're
Yeah.
doing the 4th and the 18th now. That's it, because
That's it.
John's away on the 11th
John's away
anyway.
on the 11th, yeah.
All right,
That
Okay,
was
so
any, I mean,
let me
Joe.
make sure I'm clear on Monday night. 6 o'clock, we're gonna be at the Board of Ed,
Yeah.
correct.
Correct.
till 8 o'clock?
Well,
Till
7.
closure,
Till
7.
7.
to 7, whenever
Then
it's
we're
Well, we
gonna start a new
can't
meeting.
Well,
come
we
here
can't
until
come here
8
until 8,
because of.
No, we're gonna start a new meeting, like at 7:05.
Over there.
Over there,
well,
yeah.
then that's just part of the
Yeah.
the Board of Ed and then
Yeah.
budget meeting, then 8
Right.
o'clock, we're gonna come over here,
Right, if we have to.
if we have to. Possible adjournment, 8
To-
o'clock to Town Hall.
Yeah, because then we can stay here till 10 and the janitor gets to go home,
Yeah, okay,
save them money.
got it.
short commute.
All right,
Well, we do have kind of unusual circumstance here, right? I mean,
so now,
this would be an unusual circumstance, I would say.
we'll move on to item 7, discussion and approval of minutes from February 2nd, 2024 budget workshop.
Okay. Can we get them up, Kev? Thank you. Oh,
I had just one edit under the Amity budget and discussion and vote. It said, Mr. Leahy made a motion to approve no more than 2.5% increase. I think it was 2.58%.
2.5.
2.55.
Yeah,
Couple nickels, yeah, 5.5.
very good. Let me see where we have this. Here.
Which I know.
And here.
It's a moot point now, but
Okay, revenue report, minutes, thank you.
Okay, I got a couple myself.
Johnny?
Under, starting right at the top of the people here, I think we should identify both Jim and Kevin that you left for the time you left.
I
don't
left at
remember what-
9:30 and got back here a little before 11:30, if I remember right.
Yep. I
And
left
then-
at 9.
I graduated,
I
by
left
the
at
way.
9:15 and got back. at
That's great.
1:15.
They gave me a medal
Deb,
around my neck.
got it,
Told 'em I don't
9:15.
They
want
ring the bell,
graduate
right?
school, right?
Okay, and then, under the Orange Police, second line there, theft from motor vehicles, at a S there. On page 2,
John, did you need an S? It said singular, no? Or am I?
no, he, me vehicles, he was talking about few
Oh,
vehicles.
to take off the word "ah"?
No, just add an
Add an
S to motor vehicle. Vehicles, it should be
The
vehicles,
second line
yes.
from a motor vehicle?
Theft
Then
from-
A has to go.
From motor vehicles, drop the A. and
Okay,
add a
thank you.
S.
Okay, that's what I was
Right.
asking about. Thank you.
Down on where several other town buildings.
Is this on page 1, John, or
Page 2,
page 2? Thank you.
where it says renovated, that last line, and we should say may be leased for professional services. That was a maybe, not a actual. And then on page 4, right at the top, instead of collective loss, that should be cumulative loss, where we're talking about the OV&A. I don't think we said over how many years like we spoke tonight. That's all I had.
Yeah, I had, what did you say, rather than collective loss, John?
Cumulative.
Cumulative, that's exactly what I wrote, yeah. Okay, Deb, on, let's see, this is page 3. Down at the bottom. I'm only commenting on where I was, when it's here. The first line, Mr. Cifarelli stated that the audit review will take place February 24th at the, rather than their regularly scheduled date, at the regularly scheduled monthly meeting. Building on what Anna mentioned in terms of the math on that one in that area code, the motion was that the OBOF would support up to, not would approve. Would support
Yeah.
up to, all right? Approve, we don't have anything to do with approval. And then 2.55. Okay, I think that's all I have there.
Jim, I have page number 3,
Page 3, thank you, Jim.
first line.
Up at the top?
Yeah, so Mr. Jain suggested that Mr. Mongilo investigate the cost of Teams. It's just PEAMS, not meeting.
Right.
Oh, Teams?
Yeah, or-
And take off the word meeting?
Or you can put Teams software.
Team software, okay. But it is a capital, I think, capital T.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Then on page 1,
Back on page 1, yep.
1, 2, 3, 4. Line number 5, he noted that the southern portion of Orange is becoming more developed.
Yes,
I thought we can, like above,
More populated?
has more development.
I think he said the words was becoming more developed. I don't know.
Because it is. We got the
Yeah,
hotel,
I
and
think
we
it's
got
good.
everything else
I
out
don't
there.
mind it that way.
Okay, that is all I have.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Kev?
I'm good.
And just technically, it's supposed to be Dr. Anna Mann. Sorry. It's okay. No big deal.
Same for me.
And, yeah,
2 doctors at the table.
saving lives.
No, we have
by
2.
family I would be. Yeah. That was my dad.
Okay. We good?
Okay, so we have a motion to approve as amended.
So moved?
Second.
Second by Ajit. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, unanimous. Great.
All right, Joe's back.
Okay.
By the way, it was funny, I was able to zoom in on the PDF files, but not the ones that I got from Michelle. Watch, it'll show me a liar now. No, I'm able to do it for these.
And we've already shot past your part of the agenda, Joe, because you weren't here, but is there anything
Report out.
to report to us?
Yes, we have some good information on here, Miko. So we had a joint meeting of the ABOE and the AFC, which was our first such meeting, I know there was lots of talk about bylaws and process and all, and I think at the end of it all, I came a little late because I went to a wake beforehand, but I saw Mrs. Davis there, by the way, at the wake. She was like, I recognize you.
She said, you're supposed to be the meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna be late, we're gonna be late. I said, no. Anyway, so it was very, I thought it was a very constructive meeting for both, for us to be with the ABOE versus always being by ourselves. Process aside and history aside, I think it's something that we may consider adding going forward. I think it was productive all the way around. So bottom line is, the AFC made a recommendation to reduce the budget from 3.97 down to 3.86, taking away the extra bus stop behind Paul Davis's house over in Turkey Hill. I guess there's more children coming from that area, but Sharon made the motion to cut that down by 65,000-ish or so. It was 0.11 drop in the budget, reduction in the budget, and they all made a motion. It passed 4-2. So Sean Hartshorn and I were the no vote per our recommendation here at 2.55. So again, it came in at not to exceed 3.86%. Now it's going to the Amity Board of Ed for their review and approval on the 11th.
Oh, okay, so the Board of Ed did not vote tonight?
Not tonight, no,
Just
that was
the
our
AFC
meeting tonight.
recommendation.
Yeah,
I
it was
see.
our meeting tonight,
So March 11th.
March 11th, for the ABOE final vote. They are looking to make some further cuts. There's still some discussion about possible school resource officer at $123,000. I guess there are armed guards there, and the SRO is also armed. So we're trying to see, do we need both? Is there a way to maybe cut or reduce the hours of that full-time person?
But they need somebody there for that.
They need someone there, yeah. And like we said.
At least that's my opinion.
But
Board-
they have the armed school
Yeah.
security officer, which
Yeah.
who they hadn't, that was new 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, this is the second year of it.
Yeah, so we're wondering, do we need both now? But Mr. Hauser was mentioning that the SRO does other things. It's not, the armed guard is there for, obviously, for protection and all, but the SRO does a lot more than just protect the students. So that's to be discussed in further detail with the ABOE. We had good conversations about how the education business has changed over the years. Talked about math interventionist in length versus math tutor. I was trying to understand really what do they do, what's the difference? I think I have a better understanding of it now. But they're saying the math interventionist is, I guess, more productive or better than the tutor. And the thing that came out in the meeting was that it seems like the union is taking a more active role in education, or contractual obligation-wise. I guess the interventionist is not a union person, or they talked about contractually,
I thought.
so they're in, but they're talking about contractually, if the interventionist does too much, they could become
Oh, okay.
an educator.
Mhm.
So there was conversation about not overstepping that boundary
Okay.
for responsibilities. And I spoke up, and later on, I said, well, it seems like the union is taking a very active approach here in the education business. And so they said, well, we needed to be careful because we couldn't overstep our boundaries with the interventionist person. But I said, wouldn't it make sense, or years ago, didn't the professors and the teachers make recommendations who needed math help? Now they're kind of like, well, we were kind of afraid to recommend that your child needs some math help because you might offend somebody. It was, or it's contractual. It was one of those things where they kind of stepped back, like, well, shouldn't the teacher be the one to say, hey, little Johnny Smith or Mary Smith needs a little extra help here. I'd like to make the recommendation, but now they're kind of like, it sounds like they're kind of afraid to do that, and I'm not sure if it's contractually or something. It's kind of what we heard tonight. I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
they're afraid.
I wasn't there for that part of the
I know you
discussion, but just generally speaking, there's a couple different, in terms of the contractual piece, if you have too many assignments to a non-unionized worker that starts looking like the same work from a unionized perspective, right, and this is true for any collective bargaining, then the union is going to say that person should be a member of our union.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, if you had a retired teacher who's still certified to teach and is doing all of the obligations of a certified teacher, then the union is gonna say, no, that person is definitely part of our union, and then you have to give them all the benefits of the
right,
collective bargaining.
right.
So that's probably what they were
That's what you
talking
were saying,
about.
yes.
And as far as what they have to kind of dance around is, at the high school anyway, less at the middle school, but at the high school, if you put an assignment on a student's transcript on their, if you say they have to go to Mr. Leahy for one time a cycle to get, to get math intervention, the question is, how are they earning credit? Because everything in a high school is credit bearing. And so, and then they can only be earning credit if it's from a certified teacher. But if you don't put it on their schedule, then what is the reason they should go? Because if they're not having attendance taking and they're not earning any credit, then where's the kind of the gravitas of that assignment? And that was what that's what the so you can't really build it into their schedule if there's no credit to be built in. But if you don't give them credit and have them earn something toward it with a certified teacher, then why would they go versus sitting in the cafeteria and eating
That's what they're
breakfast?
saying, that it's been difficult to take
Make
the
kids go,
kids
yeah.
from their
Study
study halls
Yeah.
to the math
Yes.
tutor, and it was like, whoa.
And I think it's less because I actually, frankly, from my experience, the math teachers are constantly referring kids to intervention or tutoring. It's just where's the, kind of momentum behind getting
That's a more
it.
detailed explanation for what she was trying to say, and I was
Yeah.
like, something doesn't seem right there.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
make the recommendation, but now you're saying.
remember, she's the
you're-
big
You're
boss.
stepping over
This is the
the
details.
boundaries
Yeah.
and contractual
Yeah.
obligations,
We
union
teach
employee,
them
that's
math
what it was.
differently than what I did.
That's what it was.
And I have a comment, Anna, here. If they need a math interventionist at high school, won't it be better if there is one at the middle school
Mm-hmm.
rather than at high school? It's not that somebody will get bad right at high school and
Right.
he was good all the way.
Right, and I think that they have, and you can correct me
Talked
if I'm
about
wrong,
that
Joe,
too,
I think
yeah.
they have put in some extra math tutors or interventionists or someone.
There's one math interventionist for the middle school that's in the budget.
Okay.
I believe it's in there, and now
Okay.
they were talking about.
Adding
like what
another
you
one?
just said.
Because I think they have a certified teacher who is going to do intervention. Because in my experience, and
You would
again,
know, yeah, you
there,
would
well, and I don't remember, frankly, because in my current district, an interventionist is a certified teacher.
And what do they
And a
do?
tutor, so that person, so it has to do with response to intervention, but, so tier one, it's basically on tiers. Tier one instruction is all kids, right? Like regular classroom, and I'm teaching everybody in this classroom, and I use various techniques from instruction to teach everybody. That's considered tier one. But then I'm noticing that Kevin is not, even with my differentiating and reteaching and all that, he needs a little, based on the data that I'm collecting. That
makes sense.
He needs on, on computation, he's really struggling. So I'm gonna recommend him to tier two intervention, which means that in addition to all my teaching, he also goes to another certified teacher just for that particular skill to get remediated. It's usually on a 6 to 8 week, and then they retest and those kinds of things. Then he gets released from that and goes back. It works much better at an elementary level. It's just the way that the system works. It's very difficult to do that in any comprehensive high school schedule because you have schedule, you have classes, and where you're going to pull from. The only place you can pull from is from a study hall, and you have to give credit bearing and also at this point, 15 years old, it's kind of hard to remediate certain skills, but that's what you still do. So that's what they mean by the tiers.
Okay.
And an interventionist is that tier two, tier three, and all of that is supposed to prevent kids from slipping through the cracks and going into special education.
Okay.
But if they have reached high school, they have already slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things. Usually, you're not going to have that much need because there have already been a lot of things built into someone's regular programming. You're not gonna. It's not like all of a sudden junior year, they're in pre-calc and you're like, oh my gosh, we totally missed the boat on this kid. But still, I will say that the pandemic blew everything up. And speaking as a parent of children who lived through public school in the pandemic, and you were in the same way, they lost a lot of skills and the things that we thought they were maybe
the path.
more.
Yeah, on the path to
We
learn.
thought that they were further along than they were.
So another topic tonight was about personal finance
Yeah.
being a financial literacy requirement from the state, unfunded state mandate. We're talking, I guess, there is a teacher.
Yep.
Like she said, there are, just say 8
Sections.
sections. They need 16, 17,
probably.
whatever the number is. So they need another teacher to teach that class. And there was lots of talk about, from the ABOE primarily, about how do you give them the credit for it? Do you take it away from another class? Because it's a requirement. So you have to kind of
Right, yeah, they
figure
have
out
to take them
business
away from
classes,
another
how do you do it? We're trying to add another teacher, but is there a way?
I think one of those FTEs is for specifically
Yes,
for.
it
personal
was. So
I
there
think
was
it
talking
was.
about, can we cut that? And well, we can cut it, but then,
Yeah, you cut it and then you cut all the other business
Right,
courses,
and
because
that's
then
a sh-
those two
right.
business teachers become just personal finance
that's what they
teachers.
said, yes. So
Because
that-
again,
that-
contractual obligations, they
Yeah.
can only teach 5 classes a semester.
Okay,
So that's 10, let's say that someone teaches 10 classes a year, because it's a semester-long course. And So then, and if you need, let's say 15, that means that, so those 2 teachers, 1.5 of those 2 teachers are teaching personal finance, and the only half of one of them can teach any, like accounting 2. Accounting 2 happens to be a full year course, and then that's gone.
Yeah.
Because somebody's already teaching a semester, so that's
So
how.
that was another
it's the
topic of discussion.
domino
Kind of a
effect.
little bit of a dilemma. They were trying to cut the budget, but you need that teacher. So it's to be determined where it goes with that. But yeah, so it's, there's.
Mm-hmm. Or you just cut, or you
Makes
cut
sense.
programming.
Yeah, cut programming. They also, I mean, obviously, the surplus now is only 239. Last year, Sean mentioned it, he remembered it being $1.4 million this time of year. Jim may confirm that, but that's a big difference. So we're saying our Brown and Brown is our medical consultant. They were predicting 100% medical for the way things are looking for the rest of the year. That's what they're
Which
saying.
is what you had said.
That's what they were saying. Yeah.
Well, that's where they are
It's
right
not,
now.
not trending downward at all yet, just yet. And then, I guess, there was a comment made, or that Brown and Brown said, we had a really good run, in quotes, and so it's, I guess it's coming to an end. And she also said, Dr. Byers mentioned that there are higher purchase services on the horizon for extra legal services, legal bills for what's happening with the school recently. That's going to bump up that purchase service column as well. We know debt service is down 560 year-to-date, Jim, as you see that there. But yeah, so it seems like it's a tougher budget, the surplus, and again, if we don't get the 2% to them, their 1 million excess money may not be there, or maybe that may be all that there will be. So we'll see how it goes. So it's definitely a different year than what we're used to seeing.
What'd you say last year was,
$1.4 million this time of year, Jim, ish?
Actually, we got our number today for what our payment is for March, and as our agreement is with Amity, all 3 towns, their payments reduced in March by the surplus from last year. So Orange's payment is being reduced by 714,000.
715 here, Josh, you gave it 715, yeah, change, okay.
Is that in our current year budget?
No,
So we might need to apply that for next year.
For sure.
we didn't know what it was gonna be with the change
That's right,
last
that
year,
would be
so
a
we didn't do
favorable-
anything.
well,
So our
no,
credit is
would we,
715, Deb, our
no,
credit
that wouldn't be in this year, would it?
coming back to Orange.
Well,
It's
That
right
would be
now.
in-
it's
in
reduced from
23,
this year, but
24.
we
Back
can
to us.
apply it to next
Right,
year.
if we just saved in March $700,000, that's not budgeted, because we didn't budget
Correct.
for it this time.
That's correct.
It'll funnel to the fund
Fall
balance.
into fund balance, and
And then-
we'll have the discussion Monday and other nights about
Right.
capital,
Like we have
about
before.
And what to
using
use
some
the
of that
fund-
fund
yeah, what
balance
to use the fund
possibly.
balance for.
You know, because we do have a lot of projects that are still coming
Yep.
online, and we've done that in the past with UI, where we took some money here, because we said, oh, we know next year their taxes are going up $800,000.
Right.
You know, it's all open for, but before I forget, John, to be a pain, for Monday, we're gonna have hopefully the grand list from Mark,
Yes, I hope to have that to you Friday.
okay, and then can we, like, that spreadsheet you do for capital and for the fund balance?
I'll have the fund balance to you, I'll have the ARPA one to you. Capital, I gotta do a little work on, but I.
Just to see,
probably
like,
get you a
what do we
good-
have in
I
there?
could get you a good,
Yeah,
a
even if
good
we-
idea of where it is.
John,
Okay.
can we, when you send those out, could you either send them out to everybody as Excel, or at least to me in Excel, because when we get together, we can work it together, just like we always do. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I want to, 5 years, revenues and expenditures. John, can I stop over to, and you're thinking of, we would
John's
use
somebody
as
to
a
get the budget
departure
done.
point,
What's that?
whatever, like page 20 of Michelle Lasso's document was today is that's the baseline.
That is.
I
19,
don't know.
page 19.
Page
Yeah,
19?
Page 19, yep.
Okay, so I'll stop over tomorrow, I'm gonna see Chris anyway, because I have this problem with my computer here.
all right, so item 8 is budget discussion, is there anything else to go
Yeah,
there?
I've gotta
We
catch you up on
Gonna
something.
defer till Monday?
I think we're good till Monday.
We talked about the reval and all, okay.
Yeah, read these over.
So item number 9, to review revenue and expense reports for February 2024.
Important.
John, is there anything that's scaring you?
I need that.
Besides everything we
copy.
just
Yeah,
spoke
I got it.
about.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'll do it back.
Read it, yeah.
No, in the revenue side, he's a little behind in tax collection, but delinquent bills went out. And I noticed we collected 20,000 Sunday online, so.
Okay, yeah, because he sent out a memo too.
Yeah, that
For some
was,
reason, I didn't print it. or-
yeah, that
I
was,
think the other thing is our
lot of
building,
data, no
our
information.
building permits, I don't
did
think
print
we're
it.
gonna hit our number there this year. But not too concerned about that.
Everyone else looks good, though.
John, the state revenue on page 3,
99%.
we have a highly favorable item at the top of the page, 360,000.
360.
We had
Where are you,
budgeted
Jim?
221.
What page, Jim?
Top of page 3. I got it on the screen as well.
Are you on revenue or expense?
Revenue,
Oh, okay, there it is. Never mind.
right? You see the 360 there?
Yeah.
221 on budget. I was just curious what good fortune we had.
That's because we got that money back that we had lost the last 2 years because our budget was over 2.5%.
Ah,
Well, that's right,
Okay.
we talked about that.
we should ask a waiver for that when we're doing revals. Okay. Okay.
What's not in here, and we're putting it in, I believe we're putting it in a special fund because it's restricted what we can do with it. The
The cannabis?
cannabis place generated 13,000 in revenue for December, the first month that we
That
were
doesn't
able to get
sound like
revenue.
a million a year, or are we in startup mode?
No, but it was surprising high.
Half a million of sales.
You thought that was high, John?
I thought that was high. I never thought we were
A
gonna
little
get
less than
that.
half
Oh,
a
you-
million, yeah.
Well, that's only.
How much are we getting that? 3%.
We got 13,000, we get 3% of recreational sales, and I don't think they were open for recreational sales
450,
for the whole
yeah.
month of December.
No, I think they were medicinal at first, right?
Right, right.
That's 450,000 in gross sales. That's a lot.
What'd you do, half a month?
For
The 1 year my office is
For a month,
crowded
they
all the
weren't
time.
even open.
It's scary.
I had
That's for 1
150.
month,
How'd you
right?
get the
Though
450?
I've been told that
'Cause the-
December, November and December are usually
That was
their
just our
high
3%.
months. I guess everybody celebrates the holidays with
cards?
that. I don't
How'd
know.
you get 450? I got 150.
Not my thing.
Oh, so it's,
I
the
have enough
calculation,
vices, I
so
don't need any
13,
more.
oh, what was the number you came in?
13K.
About 13,000.
Yeah.
And
so
that has to
it's
be
roughly-
spent
That's 3%.
like ODAC or
of
something.
The gross sales.
Oh, you're saying the
Yeah, yeah.
gross
What
sales
what
was
we're doing
450?
is we're
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
in
yeah.
I
a
was
special
saying our
fund for
annual
now.
take would
and
be
then
about
we'll
150.
put some
Correct.
expense
Oh, yeah.
against
12
it
times
out of the
13,
budget,
yes.
or we'll
Yeah, exactly.
do something with it later.
Okay. All right.
Could some of it be carved out for like the schools?
Education, yeah, it could.
Yeah, there's a list of things. He gave us a list of things that it can be used for.
Okay.
It can even be used for police, for the dog.
We don't have a dog currently, do we?
It's in training right now,
Okay, so they did get a new one.
yeah.
John, could you tell us what the state other under Director of Health, we got nothing budgeted and yet we got 34 grand?
That's Dr. Mohammed. He got a grant for his department for labor, for
Okay.
extra labor for his nurse and assistant that
Okay.
OVNA is using.
Okay.
I think that grant goes for a couple of years, but all the revenues
Okay.
in this year.
Yeah, 200K.
Other revenue questions? We can focus there and then go to expense.
No, I'm good.
Good.
Okay, expense, opening bid, page 1, somewhere there. Don't have to go there, but wherever we wish. So we're,
Probably what's gonna happen under Board of Assessment appeal, whatever he doesn't use in that $7,000, I'm probably gonna encumber because I got a feeling we're gonna have a lot of appeals on this reevaluation.
Oh, yeah. What's the deadline for that?
They're having informal hearings now with the company that did the reevaluation. They've been having it down here. I don't know how much they're changing it. And then I believe in April, the Board of Assessment Appeal meets
Right.
and deals with the more formal hearings.
What company did you have for the revamp?
JF Ryan.
JF Ryan, that's right.
We're gonna be over in my department on salaries with the retirements and Audrey coming in to train and all that.
John, in the treasurer area on page 7 near the bottom of the page,
Same thing there with Mary retiring and she's coming back to help train.
so that's the salary clerk, the last item there.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, what department's that?
Treasurer.
Treasury, page
Oh.
7 near the bottom, Jeff.
Everybody's abandoned Art and I up there.
What's that? Police
environment
uniform
these days.
patrol. He's loading up on ammunition there on page 10.
What I did is I let them buy some more because of the wars, both in the Middle East and in Europe.
So he was gonna run out.
Ammunition was going up. The
Yep.
ammunition they use is some of the ammunition that's used for the wars. So we got proactive on that and bought it
Smart
up before there
purchase.
was a big increase. You're also not gonna see a big salary savings in the police this year. He's pretty well kept his department at full staff.
Full staff, no vacancy factor, huh?
Very little,
Okay,
very little.
yeah, he's very high on the dispatches there on the top of page 11, right?
I think he's using up that overtime, I think because he's short
Right.
a dispatcher.
Well, he
And
must
then-
be
And then they got
because,
the
yeah.
contract increases too.
That too.
well, you look at
Also.
there, we got 333 and they've already used up 75%. We're
Yep.
only at
Yeah.
63% of the year, on a more level kind of thing. but-
John, page 12, regional animal control.
Yep,
They went up 25,000 on us, Board of Selectmen accepted that at their November meeting.
Gotcha.
So you'll see that in the new budget. They hadn't gone up, we had been with them 10 years at 75,000.
It's been that long?
I looked it up.
Holy cow.
That's a pretty good deal.
we seem to be reaping the benefits of a very reasonable winter over on page 14 at the top, right?
One other thing, under Public Works Administrative.
What page?
The water, on
13.
page 12,
12,
down
thank
at the
you.
bottom. Water fire hydrants, we're gonna be short about 23,000 there.
Why's that?
We've added more fire hydrants and the price of water has gone up. So I've increased that in our budget also again. Every time we add a fire hydrant, it's a cost.
Sure.
How many
Well, that's why
hydrants have we
RWA
added?
went to monthly billing instead of
Yeah, but-
quarterly, so they hope you don't notice how much that went up.
Right.
We've added?
No, we have like
Oh, we have,
3,000.
yeah.
But every time there's a plan and the fire marshal asks for a fire hydrant, that's the increased cost.
Yep.
John, is
You learn new things sitting here every day.
Yep.
top of 14, John, the sand and salt, does that look like a potential, because I think he loaded up last year.
He's encumbered that money.
Oh, yes.
He's encumbered that money. The
All right.
132 you see. there.
Yeah, I
132.
do see it there, you're
Yeah.
right.
He won't save that. If he doesn't use any of that, we'll set it in the encumbrances for a future year.
How come, it's a small number, but I'm just curious, is it percentage-wise, it's really out of whack? Under refuse on that same page 14, it's only a budget of 3, but we're over it by triple. You know what's
Overtime.
going
With the
on?
overtime?
Yeah, we don't have, if you look in the other salary item, where is it? Salary staff.
Way under.
We budgeted 155. We're supposed to have 3 other part-time people there, and we've been doing it without the part-time people.
Oh, so we're way net benefit there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Park and Rec, maintenance, page 17. There is a line item in the middle of the large category there, salary maintenance, 60 grand, and you're almost out of it.
Those are the guys that cut the lawn and rake the leaves.
Well, what, is it an execution problem? Is it a budgeting problem? What do you got?
They had to work more more in this current budget. They cut lawns until November, then they do leaves in December. Usually they're laid off in November.
That's a problem with the climate getting warmer. I remember, I think I cut my
They
grass on
also-
Thanksgiving. I was
they
like,
al-
wait a minute,
they
I'm supposed to
also-
do this anymore?
They also come in and shovel the snow on some of the sidewalks when we have snow. So we're gonna be short there because they'll be coming back in April for the lawns
Right.
again.
If
So
not
April,
sooner.
May, and
Sooner.
June, we'll be short 3 months, 3 guys. May also be, they did get a salary increase, and that may not have been picked up in that column.
Okay.
So we gotta just look at it for this year.
Over on 19, John, environmental health, real quick. The assistant, salary for assistant, center.
Position's open right now.
Okay.
We made an offer to somebody, and they accepted and then declined.
How do we get-
There's a real problem filling jobs.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
It's the real problem.
I mean, it's just statewide.
It's everywhere.
it's nationwide, I
Yeah.
think.
Do we get partials from the family counseling, halfway during the year, that I see that we had a budget of 100, and yet we had 43?
We're gonna be short there. We're trending at 120,
Really?
yeah. And I put 120 in the new budget we're working on.
Right,
Mm.
we're seeing that.
They'll tell you that with COVID and all, they're seeing a huge increase in Orange families using the service. And it's offset by some of the insurance that they have.
People having a hard time dealing with life, I guess.
Mm.
Can't figure it out.
So even though at the end, John, it says we're at 69%, and, 7.5 months should roughly come out to be 62, 63%, I do think there are a few areas here that are ahead of schedule significantly. The Amity number, they must get progress payments quicker than OBOE, for example. The percentage of their budget is, in other words, they've gotten more of their money on a percentage basis than the OBOE has. And so that would already have been spent in a sense, and so therefore the 69, that's one reason the 69 would be high. There are other reasons, including the
Yeah.
benefits area and insurance.
And right above it, all the debt service
Yeah,
that we paid
Debt
already.
service.
Yeah. So, I think we're,
Yeah,
how
I
do you
don't-
feel about it?
I don't think we're gonna be in the red on either the revenue or expense. But
Okay.
we're not gonna be where we were this year either.
Okay,
I mean, some of our big surplus items in the past aren't there, like the police.
Right,
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I know you're gonna be surplus on the expense side because we're gonna show the 700,000 from Amity reduction.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Joe, this was the key slide. Actually, it was based on this here. The big shift from residential to commercial has by itself almost a 4% increase, we think, on taxes on residential. And consequently, what we spent a fair amount of time on was the implications of what we also could use. But we started talking about before we even presented this chart, that whatever the expending is, whatever the tax shift, depending on
I didn't
how,
give you guys this.
what,
All right, so,
if the average was.
John, is there
23%
anything else?
residential.
Anybody
Yeah,
have any other questions?
So
I
we're gonna
forgot
be
to give
talking
you
about
these. Art gave me these today. It's December and January, his comparisons on the revenue. There, Anna.
Thank you.
Kevin.
I think they're together.
Keep yours, Anna.
Revenue
I'll send it
projections.
this way.
Yeah, one's January,
One's January,
December.
one's December, so
Send
there's
it that
two.
way.
Yeah, there you go.
What,
Oh,
Here.
Thank you.
what are we looking at, John? I mean, I guess it's revenue.
one more.
Thank you.
All right, it's just Art's comparison that he does for you once in a while on the revenue. this year compared to last year. And if you go to the bottom line on both, on December, last year we were 65.7 collected. This year, we're only 66.1 in December. And then if you go to the
Wait,
January,
I'm not tracking this, John. Where am
December, page 4. At the bottom,
65.7%.
I? All right.
on the
thank you.
right, 65.7 last year. If you go to the left, 66.1
So we're better.
this year.
Pretty better.
Yes, on that one we are. But then if you go to January of this year, we're 96.3 last year. We're 95.5 this year. We're a little worse.
Yeah, but in the end, I mean, our revenues average $1.7 million over budget, so
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah,
think we have
we're
anything to
doing
worry
okay.
about.
no, I'm not.
And the
I'm
thing,
not-
People are
the thing
paying their
is, you
taxes.
get into collection rates
Yeah.
and all that, and I get it. But when we start, because they've never changed this over all the years with everything that's going on in society with rates.
Yeah.
It's 18% statutory interest we get
Right.
to charge for
Right.
everybody who's late.
Right.
They're actually talking about.
Yeah, it's a good
changing it
investment,
now.
actually.
They were gonna look to change that.
You're better off if they're late,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
they
to know
should
where you
change
are,
it.
that's great, John.
Yeah.
And
Because when
thank you
you're
for
earning 0.1% in the
pointing that
bank
out.
and you're paying 18, oh, come on,
Yeah.
that's not right. People are, you know, especially COVID, they lost their
job.
jobs and you're clubbing them over the head.
I got the wrong file.
well, even if you remember, we were worried about our collection rate during COVID.
Yeah.
And we actually did
Stronger.
It
better
was
than
great,
what we
yeah, we
normally.
talked about that, I think at the last meeting, it was amazing. All right, item number 10,
German.
is a motion to adjourn.
Could I just, could I ask for 30 seconds to get Joe up to speed on the meetings that we planned, but he wasn't here for?
We could
Just
get
be
him up
here
to
next
speed, or
Monday.
we could get him
Just
up
be
to
here next
speed
Monday.
after.
You adjourn it later.
Yeah, we just, after the meeting, we're talking about it.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed, abstained, meeting adjourned at 9:20.